Stories are the most powerful thing on earth. They are literally life and death. Wars are waged based on the story of who is the hero and who is the villain. You are the result of a story your parents told each other, the one-night stand, the soulmate, and friends who became so much more. Life and death. So wouldn't you like to understand them better, these stories? How Story Works, an elegant guide to the craft of storytelling by Lani and Rich, demystifies stories and helps you understand why you love what you love, why you hate what you hate, and why prologues are almost always a bad idea. How Story Works by Lani and Rich. Available on Amazon in ebook, audiobook, and paperback form. Get your copy today.
Welcome to Still Pretty, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer podcast from Chipperish Media. I'm story expert and magically altered rat, Lani Diane Rich.
And I'm film scholar and first baseman, Noelle LaCroix. And we're here today to talk about Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, the 16th episode of Season 2.
Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered aired on February 10th, 1998, and was written by Marty Noxon and directed by James A. Contner.
A warning before we begin, every episode of Still Pretty talks about each episode within the greater context of all of Buffy, and as such is fully spoiled. We want some respect around here. We want, for once, to come out ahead. We want the Hellmouth to be working for us. So let's go on patrol. In Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered, it's Valentine's Day, and Xander is taking his relationship to the next level with Cordelia by buying her a heart necklace. But when her friends ostracize her for dating Xander, Cordelia begins to have second thoughts. Meanwhile, Giles has been researching Angelus and discovers that he's a big fan of Valentine's Day and takes it as a special inspiration for tormenting his victims.
Around Valentine's Day, he's rather prone to brutal displays. You would think of it as affection, I suppose.
Like what?
No need to go into details.
At the warehouse, Angelus gives Drew his heart. Well, someone's heart. And while Drew loves it, Spike is less than thrilled. At home, Buffy finds a dozen red roses with a card that just reads, soon. At the Bronze, Oz's band is playing, and Xander confesses his feelings to Cordelia and gives her the necklace. She responds in an unexpected manner. Well, unexpected to Xander.
Do you know what's a good day to break up with somebody? Any day besides Valentine's Day. I mean, what? Were you running low on dramatic irony?
The next day at school, Xander's hurting from being dumped, and as the other kids laugh and make fun of him, he grabs Amy and blackmails her into doing a spell to make Cordelia fall in love with him. Either she does what he asks, or he tells everyone she's a witch. Amy casts the spell, and the next day Xander strolls into school and approaches Cordelia, expecting her to fall all over him. His expectations are not met.
Some kind of weather we've been having, huh?
What do you want? You can't be sniffing around for more jewelry melts, because all you ever gave me was that small mart-looking thing.
Is this love? Because maybe I knew it doesn't look that different.
Bummed over the failure of his love spell, Xander goes to the library to vent to Buffy, and she starts flirting with him. Just as Buffy and Xander are about to kiss, Amy pulls him away to talk about redoing the spell, and she starts hitting on him too. In the hallway, another girl interrupts Xander and Amy, and he rushes home to find Willow waiting for him in his bed. She asks him to be her first and starts nibbling his ear.
I don't want to use force.
Force is okay.
That's it. This has got to stop. It's time for me to act like a man. And hide.
The next day at school, all the women are hot for Xander. He hides out in the library, where he confesses all to Giles and asks for help. As he explains the situation, Jenny comes in, wanting to talk to Giles about the tension between them. In the middle of her speech, she gets distracted by Xander's sexiness. Giles drags Jenny out under protest as he goes to search for Amy to reverse the spell, and while Xander's alone in the library, Buffy comes in wearing nothing but her short raincoat. She advances on him, and he tells her that he can't because she's under a spell. Amy comes in, turns Buffy into a rat to get her out of the way. But then Giles comes in with Jenny. And what is it with all these women wanting her Xander?
Why is she here?
Can you focus for a minute? You just turned Buffy into a rat.
While Amy and Jenny fight over Xander, the Buffy rat scurries away. Just as Xander's about to get the rat, Oz comes in and in one of the most satisfying moments of all of Buffy, punches Xander in the face. The Buffy rat runs out of the library and Giles sends Xander home while Oz goes to look for Buffy. Giles tries to get Jenny and Amy to focus on reversing the spell, which seems to have affected everyone but Cordelia. As Xander is leaving the school, he finds a bunch of girls beating the hell out of Cordelia for breaking his heart. He grabs Cordelia and rescues her from the mob inside the school, only to find another mob outside of the school, led by Willow.
I'd rather see you dead than with that bitch.
Xander and Cordelia escape to Buffy's house, where Joyce takes them in. She sends Cordelia to get the first aid kit and then starts kissing Xander's neck. Cordelia throws Joyce out of the house, but as Joyce uses an axe to break back in, Xander and Cordelia lock themselves in Buffy's bedroom. But Angel grabs Xander through the window looking for Buffy. As Angel's about to attack, Drew throws him off Xander and then kisses Xander.
How do you feel about eternal life?
We couldn't just start with a coffee?
Just as Drew's about to turn Xander, the mob of women come for him, wielding axes and clubs. Cordelia fights them off and they run into the house where Joyce waits holding a butcher's knife. Oz tracks Rat Buffy down to the school basement and Giles has Amy working to reverse the spell. In Buffy's basement with Cordelia, Xander explains to her what he did, and when she realizes the spell was to make her love him, not all the other girls, she's touched, which is the exact opposite of the reaction she should be having. Amy reverses the Buffy rat spell and she turns back into Buffy, now naked in the school basement with Oz.
I seem to be having a slight case of nudity here.
But you're not a rat, so call it an upside.
The mob of women break into Buffy's basement, ready to kill Xander in their obsession, but Amy reverses the love spell, and they all come to their senses, confused. Xander and Cordelia make up a scavenger hunt cover story, and the women accept it and disperse. The next day at school, Xander's still bummed. Willow won't even talk to him now. Buffy comforts Xander, grateful that he didn't take advantage of her inability to consent, and we expect way too little of men, people. Meanwhile, Cordelia's back in the fold with her friends, but when Harmony is mean to Xander, Cordelia chooses Xander over her friends.
Do you know what you are, Harmony? You're a sheep. I'm not a sheep. You're a sheep. All you ever do is what everyone else does, just so you can say you did it first. And here I am, scrambling for your approval when I'm way cooler than you are, because I'm not a sheep. I do what I want to do, and I wear what I want to wear. And you know what? I'll date whoever the hell I want to date. No matter how lame he is.
Okay, so Noelle, what did you think of Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered?
I love this episode. It's
a fun episode.
Delightful. I love any sort of, magic gone wrong or bizarro world or body switch or wear all our Halloween costumes. Any of those crazy antics, I love so much.
Yeah.
And this is such a fast moving story.
Yeah.
It's delightful. It's completely delightful.
It is. It's nice. It's nicely motivated. You've got Xander doing a terrible thing. Let's just put it out there. A love spell is a terrible thing. Giles makes it clear why it's terrible without even talking about issues of consent. It's just a stupid thing to do because people are dangerous, apparently, when they are under the effects of a love spell, as we discover. But also it's a terrible thing to do because it really is basically like magical rape. You're sort of, inducing consent in somebody who would not consent otherwise. And Xander doesn't take advantage of that, which is a good thing. Although you're going to hear me say a number of times in this episode that we expect way too little of men.
Yeah.
Our expectations of men are way too low. But I think it's a really all of that aside, we've got Xander doing something stupid. It's a terrible thing to do. We don't talk about issues of consent, which I kind of wish we did. But short of that, we do condemn the behavior. We talk about how stupid it is. He realizes how stupid it is and there's tons of consequences. So for all of that, I'm like, okay, then now I can enjoy it and have fun. And it is really, really fun.
Well, it's the most Xander thing to do.
It is completely on brand.
Xander, and oh my God, when he makes the decision to corner Amy, he does this wonderful little like hop, skip, and jump as he kind of runs over to where she is to grab her and pull her aside. And at that moment, he embraces being the villain. It's so funny. Like you can see him sort of putting on this like veneer of confidence and control. Like he can't control the situation the way he wants to, so he's going to control Amy into doing what he wants. And normally I'd be like, oh, that's real yucky, but it feels very realistic to me. It feels like an appropriate for Xander response to the situation. And Amy is such a great match for him. I absolutely love the two of them together, and the quality of that relationship where she is very much like not really wanting to do this thing, but also suddenly on board. And when he turns to look at Cordelia down the hall and Amy pokes her little head into frame, it is the most wonderful.
I love that shot.
It's like wonderfully Scooby-Doo and Looney Tunes. And then the whole episode just follows that kind of a, I don't know, there's that sort of emotional resonance. If I feel like we're in this super heightened reality, not just because of the spell, but also because of the performances and how quick the dialogue moves and how quickly we move from one problematic situation to another.
Exactly. No, it's so great. And I love Elizabeth Ann Allen as Amy. We're going to see her a bit more, of course, as we move through the rest of the series. She is never used to like the full extent of her capabilities. She has amazing comic timing. I think she makes a wonderful villain. She's not really a villain in this episode. She's just kind of like has power, you know? Although she does, turn Buffy into a rat. I mean, granted, she's under the influence of a spell, but obviously not someone to be fucked with, like she's serious. Amy is serious business, and we're getting that. We don't use her nearly enough. She spends a good portion of her time on the show as a rat, of course, as resulting from the gingerbread episode, which we're going to see next season. But she is so fun. She's such a great actress. I love her every time she's on screen. Even when I hate what she's doing, I always love her as an actress, and Amy is always interesting to me, like as a character. So she was really, really fun. Of course, again, this is completely on brand for Xander. This is exactly like when Giles says, "I can't believe you're fool enough." He goes, "Oh no, I'm twice the fool it takes to do this."
Perfect.
I love that. That is exactly Xander. It is so great. I love when he's in there with her, with Amy, and she's like, well, for a love spell, you've got to have, your intent has to be pure. And he's like, I intend revenge, pure as the driven snow.
Frickin' love that moment. Love it.
So great. And I think that Nicholas Brendan, whatever problems anybody might have with Nicholas Brendan, he does have some problematic personal stuff, which can sometimes affect the way you experience an artist's work. I try to keep that separate as much as I possibly can. But his delivery, his timing, everything is so wonderful. He's so fun. I love everything about him in this episode.
He absolutely nails his performance. I mean, he kicks so much ass. He's so great. And he has to do all of these things all at once. The sort of desire and then confusion desire and then abject horror at the realization of what he's done. It's wonderful. It escalates so beautifully. And we get to see Xander's room. I think this is the first time we see Xander's bedroom. And
I think it is.
I am here for the production design.
Oh, no, I think we saw it in Prophecy Girl after after Buffy dumped him. But we haven't seen it much. We just saw him listening to country music and
the music of pain.
His life. The music of pain, exactly. But it's kind of fun to see the personal side of Xander. We very, very gradually have his home life revealed for us, and it gets sadder and sadder and sadder the more we realize what his actual life is like. In season 4, we get a much stronger sense of that. But in this moment, it's just like this average teenage boy's room. room. And of course, Willow in his bed wearing just his shirt. I mean, damn.
That scene is so
God.
well done. That he's already grasped what has gone horribly wrong.
Yes.
And he's just now like, oh God, like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like, he's just doing everything he can think of to try to, put this fire out. And he just like, nothing is working. What about Oz? Well, he's not you. Well, he is me. You should go to him.
He's trying to see if that'll work.
So desperate to just anything. But it is such a delightful moment, and there's such a delightful music cue when she pops up from under the covers. And oh man, I can't really be objective about this episode because it is
you don't need to
specifically to delight me. I love wild magical antics.
Yes. No, I like that too. Like, one of my favorite things is the bizarro world, right? Where everything is different. We have a few episodes like that. This isn't actually a bizarro episode, but it does kind of have this, altered reality kind of feel to it. Nobody is themselves in this episode, so it's really, really fun. And we have this thing with Willow, which of course is so beautifully done with Allison Hannigan, because she's the one who had real feelings for Xander for such a long time. She's finally seen Oz. We see her so excited. My boyfriend's in the band.
My God.
She's all excited. She's all Willow. She is, letting Xander go. She's finally getting to that point. And then to have this happen. She's, when she has, like, when they run out, he and Cordelia after he rescues her, and outside there's the mob and there's Willow with an axe, and the whole thing is funny and heightened and ridiculous. But Willow is weeping. I mean, she's so upset. And Allison Hannigan could have played this up just for the comedy of it. But she really played that, like, deep heartbreak, because some of this is real for her. Yeah. And for her to be in that position where she's magically altered to a point where all of these feelings that she's been having for Xander for all of this time are now suddenly finding expression. That has got to be so awful for her. So at the end, when Xander says, Willow's not even talking to me, and Buffy's like, well, this has got to be, the hardest for her. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it is. I mean, he didn't intend that to happen to her, but regardless, it did. And I also love, I love Oz in that moment when he punches Xander in the face, which is wonderful. But then he just says, I talked to Willow last night. She was really upset, and I just wanted to hit you in the face. And the thing that I love about this with Oz is two things. One, he comes in, he says, I wanted to hit you in the face. And it is not about possession. It's not about you messed with my girl. It's about you hurt somebody I care about. Yeah. Like, Oz isn't jealous. There's no sense of, of possessiveness or territory going on there. And then as soon as he punches Xander in the face, he reaches down and helps him stand up.
That is such a perfect moment. That is such a perfect character moment for Oz. And I love the contrast of Oz and Willow in this episode. I mean, we get a little bit of an emotional rise from Oz. I mean, he is upset that Willow was upset. But he's still his, like, calm, even Oz. We get every flavor of Willow in this episode. Every single I mean, from my boyfriend's in the band to her just, like, beaming up at him on stage. She's so delighted. It is such a genuine, like, joy face. Yeah. And then, Willow in Xander's bed wearing just his shirt it's so funny. It's so funny. And she says, I've been in your bed before. And he says, we were both wearing footy pajamas.
It is so beautiful. I love all of that. I mean, and it's so fun to kind of see all these characters in all of these different contexts. Like Jenny, right? Jenny Calendar. As much as I didn't like Jenny Calendar at the beginning. I like her just a smidge more with every episode she's in. But in this one, I love it. I love it. First of all, we have that sad kind of conflict between her and Giles. Giles won't look at her. He won't talk to her. He's being loyal to Buffy, which is really nice. And then she busts into the library like, no, we're talking about this. We're having this out. If you think I'm just going to go away. And then she just starts patting Xander absently without even thinking much. Like, are you working out? And then like Giles is dragging her away and she's like, oh no. She's reaching for Xander. It is so adorable and so funny, and it's nice to see Giles. Obviously he's focused on Xander and Xander's stupidity and he's really annoyed, but he's taking care of Jenny.
Yes.
Because obviously Jenny is not going to want to be the teacher who like hits on a student or worse. So for Jenny the stakes are a bit higher than for the the young girls. It's so adorable.
I love the way Giles just throws her out of the way. Xander has come to confess this, and Giles is kind of like, oh yeah, all right, you did a stupid thing. But then once it's clear, and we watch Jenny transform from, hey Xander, nice shirt, to stroking him and petting him. And as soon as Giles realizes the severity of this, he just grabs her and throws her behind him. Like, out of my way, we got work to do. And it's hilarious. It's such great physicality. I
love it.
And then, there's this whole, I still love the Giles Jenny thing. But at the beginning, when Giles kind of blows her off, shuts her down, I love that we get a shot of Buffy registering that also.
Yeah.
It's not just the sadness between Giles and Jenny that they, have this friction and they can't, he's not willing to talk about it or doesn't, whatever.
Right.
It's also that Buffy is part of that. And then in the next scene, Buffy asks Giles if he's okay. And my heart just breaks a little bit because
I know
Buffy and Giles are now at this point where they're really seeing who the other person is. They have really deep knowledge about each other.
Yeah.
And I love the way they're finding their groove in this personal relationship that sort of exists within the weird professional relationship that they have. I love seeing Giles and Buffy care about each other, and the dynamic of that love story is just, it's so wonderful.
It's so wonderful, and it's written with such a light touch. I mean, Marty Noxon is one of my favorite writers, anyway, but we haven't seen her really do what she can do. I think this is the first time we've seen her really be Marty Noxon, and it's beautifully put together. We've got all this stuff in the background that really has meaning and has emotional weight to it, and yet it's also lightly handled. It's so beautiful. We've got the lovely moment when Xander is asking Cordelia for the necklace that he gave her, and she's like, yeah, that piece of junk, it's in my locker, but she's wearing it. She hides the fact that she's actually wearing it underneath her shirt, from him. That is such a clear, like, little moment, but it says so much about what Cordelia is really going through and how she's really feeling it. Even when she breaks up with him, she's so like, she's like, oh God, you had to make this harder because you look good, and
which is,
and she's really struggling with this, But of course, Xander is so wrapped up in himself that he can't see anything that she's going through, you know? But it's so sweet because we get that from Cordelia in these really nice little moments, and I like the way that Marty Noxon is able to get so much across with such economy. We're able to get all of this stuff going in the background. We're able to get like Oz and Willow, and then Willow's heartbreak, and Jenny and Giles, and Buffy's concern for like all of that stuff with like one line. Like, her economy is unbelievable in this episode.
It's fantastic. And I just feel like the way the spell goes wrong is such a Marty Noxon, like, I'm just like, of course it would affect everyone but Cordelia. Like that, it's just so cheeky. Like, it's so smart, but also so cheeky. And I just, that is just delightful.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the love spell itself.
Okay.
Because I had some questions about this. Okay, so we have it's a vengeance spell, pure as the driven snow. So obviously there's going to be consequence. I love the fact that Cordelia's necklace actually protects her from the spell. So it's a reversal of that, which I think is really nice. So we've got this blowback from this spell that every woman is in love with Xander, right? And I have some questions about that. That seems heteronormative as fuck. Right? Because it's not everybody who's attracted to men is attracted to Xander. Right? It's women. So women, and especially if you think about it on any deep level, right? There's a percentage of these girls who are realizing that they are somewhere else on the Kinsey scale, that they are not necessarily a Kinsey zero. They might be into girls a little bit. And then all of a sudden, one day, they're madly in love with Xander. And that's got to just throw a girl's sexual development just the hell off, right?
High school was such a confusing time. I knew I was into women. And also this one time I wanted to hack Xander Harris to pieces with an axe. I don't know. It was really
It is so weird.
It is bizarre, but it also fits for me in terms of Xander's limited understanding of what he wants. Xander would not think through. It's very much, it's a be careful what you wish for, right? Xander's complaint is that no women are into him. So then, of course, all women are into him. And that's the flip. But you're absolutely right, because they do at the end, we hear sort of the background, Walla, is like, where are we? What's going on? Everyone is very confused and disoriented, as you would be. But then Buffy makes it very clear at the end that they remember. Everyone remembers what happened. Yeah. So, that would mess you up.
That would mess somebody up when they're trying to figure out, where they're landing.
Yeah, where their attraction is. Yeah, that would be right. That could be interesting and problematic for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, I thought that was kind of interesting because it's we're forcing all women, regardless of where their natural inclinations lie, to be in love with, of all people, Xander Harris. Right? If you're a woman at a young age, figuring out that you're not exactly a 0 on a Kinsey scale, or maybe you're a 6. I mean, let's face it, you could be anowhere in there, right? And then all of a sudden, one day you're in love with a man. And it's Xander. All of that's got to throw you off. I'm just saying, this is a little inconsiderate. It's an inconsiderate spell. Of course, any spell that messes with a woman's consent is, of course, or anyone's consent is obviously a problematic spell. It's supposed to be problematic. But I just kind of thought that was
totally.
Funny.
And then, and then if we want to get really, really queer and get into well, but wait a minute. So Giles says every female in Sunnydale. How are we defining female? Sex is also not a binary, even though we like to think that it is. It's not. What are we? What is the spell defining? I don't I have so many follow-up questions for the spell. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's a very simplified view of the world, which makes the spell cleaner, and I mean, it worked. But I mean, there's a whole range in
everything.
There. And if you split it up between men and women, boys and girls,
everything
is
a spectrum, folks. It all is. Yeah. But I think that it works for me in that way. I mean, issues of consent and autonomy and desire and all of those things aside, it works for me in that we're so deep in Xander's point of view that Xander wouldn't consider anything, No. Xander, it would never occur to Xander that anyone might, be somewhere else sexually. Everyone, Xander is very much of the, everyone does things the way I do them, or at least everyone should do things the way I do them. And then he gets exactly that. And he's,
and he doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. It's interesting. But I love...
Yeah, it's like the dog who chases the squirrel all the time, and then suddenly the squirrel stops and says, what do you want? And the dog's like, I don't know what to do with this. You're supposed to run. I'm supposed to chase you. I'm not supposed to catch you. That's how this works, you know.
Or the cat who meows to go outside and then doesn't want to be outside. Not this outside.
Oh, God. So anyway, we've got this whole thing with Xander and Buffy.
Yes.
Right? We've had this weirdness with Xander and Buffy. He was in love with her. Then he sort of like let it go. At the beginning, he says, you know, I'm with Cordelia because the only other person I'm interested in is unavailable. So I'm presuming at that moment he's talking about Buffy. They had that weird moment of sexual tension last week. So it felt like they were kind of playing with the idea of getting Buffy and Xander together. Then we have this whole scene where she comes in wearing only the raincoat. She is intent on seducing Xander. And Xander turns her down, right? And at the end of the episode, Buffy is like, well, you're such a hero.
Yeah.
You know, because you didn't take advantage of my inability to consent. And I'm like, okay, first of all, he does say this gross, would lap dancing enter into that scenario at all? Because I find that very comforting, right? God. You know, earlier in the day when he was talking to her, she first started, you know, hitting on him. So there's all of that. But it just seems to me like when he is rejecting her, even then, it is not about her at all. If you knew what it would mean to me, if you knew, you know, but you don't know. And it was all about him and about how he wanted her, that he wanted her in the way that he wants her, and it was all about him. So I think it's good and it's right that he, of course, not take advantage of that situation because she is obviously clearly not herself in that moment. But it still feels really focused on him in the way that he wants her. He wants the conquest of it, and if he can't have the conquest, then he doesn't want her. And so that felt weird to me. You know, it's no, when I'm kissing you, you're kissing me. It's not like he is no Oz.
Yeah. I mean, it's that scene is super uncomfortable for me on a number of levels. But I actually love the scene that comes before that, not directly before that, but the moment where I think it's our first indication that the spell has not worked as planned. And Buffy is just kind of commiserating with Xander about, you know, it's like a bummer that, you know, we don't have people and it's, you know, Valentine's Day and, you know, let's hang out, just the two of us. And then it turns, like, she starts to smolder at him.
Yeah.
I love that. First of all, Sarah Michelle Gellar can smolder with anyone.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is serious damn business. I got to tell you, she's amazing.
That smolder where she shifts from, hey, Xander, let's hang out. You know, we could comfort each other kind of thing. And then, you know, and then he has that line about, you know, I find lap dances comforting. Right. She comes right back to him with, you know, play your cards right in this. And I'm like, oh, what? You know, like, I'm right there. I'm right there with him in that moment because she's so, like, she dials up the smolder so slowly. And then it looks like they're going to have a little sexy moment.
A little kiss.
And then Amy comes in and then, you know, over the course of the next scene, it becomes clear what has happened. But until Xander really gets that, you know, that this is magic, he's like, oh, all right. Like, I guess
he's all right, of course. Yeah.
So then when she comes sauntering into the library, which, first of all, the barricade, when he barricades the library door with the card catalog and then it just opens the other direction is so perfect.
That.
It's so good. She comes sauntering in with this saxophone music underneath.
Yep.
I mean, we'll talk about the music in a minute because damn. It's just like, oh God, now what? You know, by that point, in such a short period of time, we've escalated this so thoroughly that, you know, at first I'm kind of like, yeah, Buffy and Xander, I guess. I mean, maybe a little bit, right? You know?
I'll get on that ship for a day
or two. Sure. You're heartbroken. I'm heartbroken. Let's be heartbroken together.
Sure.
But,
right.
I mean, but it's so great how quickly that shift happens. And then, yeah, he's very like, no, you don't understand what it would mean to me. It's not about I'm not willing to do something to a person who is, you know.
Right.
under the influence of magic. Yeah.
It's if you knew what this would mean to me, you know?
Yeah. It's iffy, but
it's very centered on him. And like, I get it, he's a kid and this is the way, kids think. And especially like young men, who are basically raised to be entitled to a certain degree, culturally we raised, especially young white men, to be very entitled to women and women's bodies under any circumstance. Right. And we're changing that now, but back in the 90s, not so much. And so like, I understand, I get all of that. It just like, it struck me the wrong way as much as I love all of it. Buffy's gratitude at the end, looking up at him like he's such a hero because he didn't take advantage of her inability to consent, and it's one of those things where I'm like, you know what? We expect so little from men. Like, that is way too little to be, oh, my hero, you didn't rape me.
Right.
So I find that to be a little bit like, I understand her appreciating that, but I also would love for it to be a circumstance where that would go without question.
Yeah.
Where like, of course he wouldn't do that. Of course, no decent.
You wouldn't. You don't do that to somebody who's under the influence of any sort of mind-altering substance.
Yeah, exactly.
And what struck me, it's funny that what struck me about that little coda to this whole interaction between them wasn't so much her reverence for the fact that he didn't undress her. Although I see that now and that's really fucked up, was she is acknowledging to him right away, like, this is the next day, that, no, I remember this. I remember what I did to you.
Yeah.
When we've just had that whole conversation about, Xander pretending not to know what happened when he was a hyena,
right.
And then it comes up accidentally, and he was horrible to her. And there's no, I was going to say there's no apology. She doesn't apologize to him either. But I don't think she necessarily owes him an apology because
I don't think
he
does,
put the magical roofie on everyone.
Yeah.
And she still seems very grown up. Like, let's talk about this. I remember that I did this, and I remember how you responded, and I want you to know that I remember. It's not so much, I guess I didn't read it so much as like my hero, as I just want you to know that I remember what happened.
Right.
And we're not going to pretend like nothing happened. We are going to acknowledge that something happened. But it's this like creepy double standard about, men under the influence of magic get to behave horribly, but women under the influence of magic are expected to, like, I don't know, fess up to what I don't know. There was something there that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and maybe I'm overly sensitive about who should be apologizing to whom in the Xander Buffy relationship. Yes. Maybe that's just, I don't know. I don't know. But I love this idea that I think the spell showcases really well. And you brought up earlier talking about, young people in high school and what feels like love not actually being love.
Right. Well, Giles says this thing, it's not love, it's obsession, selfish, banal obsession.
Yeah.
Right. And I really, really like that because I think that he shines a light on that. And one of the things that I thought was kind of interesting is that we have this sort of contrast with Angel and Buffy, right? Because the obsession is what Angelus feels for Buffy now. He is obsessed with her. Like, he just can't stop thinking about ways to torment her, But love is what Buffy feels for Angel. Angel, of course, who is not present anymore because he left when Angelus took over, And we don't really do anything with that. But I thought it was kind of an interesting reflection of the ways in which love and obsession do differ. It can feel like love, but it is not love.
Yeah. I like the idea that obsession ultimately turns deadly too.
Yeah.
And not just, Willow being ready to hack Xander to pieces, but Joyce says, we have to end it. She's got a knife. She says, we have to end it. Are these women who claim to love Xander ready to kill him and themselves? Is that what...
Yeah, if they can't have him,
it's
right. If I can't have you, then I'm going to kill you. And I mean, let's face it, that is not an unusual human occurrence. Like that people do that, So I like that as a love spell, it got dangerous like that it didn't induce love, it induced obsession and possession, which is really, really interesting. Then of course the object of his desire, Cordelia, is like whatever,
So funny. Well, what I think is kind of funny is that Amy calls upon Diana and she says, goddess of love and the hunt.
Yes.
Diana is not the goddess of love, folks. She is the goddess of the hunt. She's also the goddess of virgins and small woodland creatures, or maybe large woodland creatures as well.
Like rats, maybe?
Possibly. I think it's more like
the Hecate.
Yeah, like forest
one,
creatures.
Right?
But I'm just like, whoops! Like that's a real rookie mistake, Amy. Wrong goddess. I mean, maybe that's why the spell goes wrong. That it ends up protecting Cordelia from Xander instead of, I don't know. But it is an interesting thing that this is we go in with. I was going to say we go in with a love spell, but it's not a love spell. It's a revenge desire kind of spell, which really strikes me as something that fits with our Buffy, Angel, Angelus storyline, but we don't get much of that. I mean, we do get a little bit of Spike and Drew and Angelus, everyone's favorite vampire throuple.
Which is always fun. Oh my God. I love when he brings her a heart. I found it in a quaint little shop.
Brilliant. That line. Oh God, that's a good line.
I know. It's so fantastic.
And we don't get a lot of our vampire throuple, but what we do get, I think, is really great.
Yes.
But is Spike bonier than he used to be? Because he's sick. I mean, I was like, that's a lot of cheekbone going on there.
Yeah, no, he's always, you could cut glass on that cheekbone.
And Angel has clearly been stealing Spike and Drew's eyeliner because he's eyeliner.
Eyeliner equals evil on a man. That's just it, but it's great. It looks awesome on him. I love it. Whenever he's Angelus, he's always got eyeliner.
It's fantastic. And it's, and we get this nice counterpoint to the Xander Cordelia plot with Spike giving Drew a necklace. And then Angelus, of course, gives her a human heart. I know. And I like Angelus seducing Drusilla, not because he's particularly interested in being with her, but because it gives him more power over Spike.
Yeah, exactly.
I really, really like that. And then of course we get a little taste of that obsession with Buffy that Angelus has. Spike tells Angelus to rip Buffy's lungs out. And Angelus says it lacks poetry, and Spike says it doesn't have to. What rhymes with lungs? Just
which is such a perfect Spike line. And I love Spike being on the back foot like this. Like here he is. He's in a wheelchair. Vampires heal really fast, but apparently he's not. Having a pipe organ fall on you apparently is very, very damaging to maybe it was filled with holy water.
I was going to say maybe it was because it was in a church.
In a church, it was a holy pipe organ, just did all sorts of damage to him. But it's so fun to see him in this position where he is just seething with resentment for Angelus, and Angelus is making the moves on Drusilla, and Drusilla is loving it.
Drusilla, I love strong Drusilla. Strong Drusilla just does whatever
Drusilla.
She wants. I mean. Sick Drusilla did whatever she wanted to do, but strong Drusilla doesn't have anything holding her back. She's just like, yep, I'm gonna.
I know. So we don't get a whole lot, of Angelus in here. We have him present. He's making the threats on Buffy.
Yeah.
The dozen roses with the card that says "soon" on it. Which, by the way, Joyce did not seem to have a reaction to that. Like, my teenage daughter gets a dozen red roses left mysteriously on the back porch with a card that says "soon." I would be like, who's this from? What's his name? Where does he live?
I need an explanation now.
Exactly. And Joyce is just like, I don't know. It's a little weird. Okay. And that's it. And, it's a little disturbing.
Yeah.
But I love too when Buffy's getting all the information on Angelus from Giles. Giles, of course, trying to protect her at first, and then she's like, "No, you need to tell me everything." And he's like, "Well, there was one Valentine's Day when he got a puppy," and she's like, "Skip it. I don't have a puppy. I don't want to know."
Well, and I love Buffy calling Giles on his bullshit. She's like, you never held anything back from me before, but now that the big bad is my ex. She's like, I think she says, I can't prepare for it if I don't know what's going to happen. I was like, yes, this idea that we need to protect people by withholding information from them, that somehow will keep them safe is so the opposite, really, of what, because Buffy's right. Like, you can't protect yourself against something you don't know is coming.
Exactly. She's completely right, and he is being very patriarchal. I mean, of course, with the best of intentions in the most loving way. I mean, his intentions, of course, are good. He just wants to protect her. Completely understand that. I think it makes complete sense. But it is something that, that Buffy needs to like wake him up from, because that's not going to work.
And again, their relationship is just so delightful. Buffy and Giles.
Yes,
Buffy
really
and Giles,
is.
I did not really fully comprehend that love story the first time through the show. I mean, Buffy and Giles, they're great. It's wonderful. But this something that I'm really zooming in on is just how great their relationship dynamic is, and how, wonderfully unconventional it is.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
No, it is. It's a great, great relationship. And I love every movement that we get of that relationship right up through the end of the series. It's always, always really fun. But another thing I want to talk about a little bit more, we hit on Oz a little bit earlier, but I didn't quite get to talk about Oz as much as I wanted to.
Speaking of our non-toxic masculinity.
But what I love, a couple of things with Oz. One, I love when he comes in and, he hits Xander, and then Xander's like, yeah, Amy turned Buffy into a rat. And he's like, oh, and he is just completely chill. He's like, all right, that's fine. I'll just look for a rat that is Buffy. I'm not going to ask any questions. I'm not going to find out what's going on. I'm not going to be like, how exactly did Amy turn Buffy into a rat? He's just in it. He's on the job, and it's awesome. But I also really loved the moment when Buffy turned back into Buffy. Right? She is naked in the basement of the school, right? And he is looking her straight in the eye. They didn't go for the joke, which I really love. They didn't go for the joke where he's like trying to catch a piece. Yeah. Right? He just says, well, hey, you're not a rat. And he's not looking at her because she's naked. Like, his eye contact is just a little bit off, and it's so incredibly sweet. And then I'm sitting there just completely charmed by the fact that he didn't try to to get a peek at her, that he didn't make any crude joke about her being naked, that he instead just completely looked away and then ran off to get her some clothes, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, Oz, what wonderful. And then I thought, Jesus Christ, we expect way too little of it. The fact that he didn't completely like take advantage of that situation to objectify and humiliate her, I'm like, oh my God, Oz. I mean, yes, I love Oz, and Oz is wonderful for a million different reasons, but that should be the expectation. Right. There should be nothing charming about that.
Right. What I love about that moment is the way he once he's got his flashlight and he shines it on her face, and then he sees that she's Buffy and he yanks that flashlight back. He's not going to pull. He turns the light off and he pulls the flashlight back like, okay, we're good here. Yep. It's so wonderful.
I love
I love Oz being so blasé about about her turning back into a human being and being naked because Oz last week woke up in the forest naked.
True.
So he's like, cool, I have some experience with this. It is not comfortable. Let me go get you some clothing. Like, it's so wonderful.
It is really wonderful. I love that.
It's interesting that, the idea of Oz and transformation came up last week with phases. And we talked about this contrasting toxic masculinity, right? So we've got Larry's dialed up misogyny, which is masking his internalized homophobia. And then we have Oz's complete non-toxic masculinity paired with his literal monstrosity 3 nights out of the month. And that was bothering me. And then Rob Hyrett of Metaphors Be With You spotted a metaphor, unsurprisingly, that I think is also really relevant here. Rob proposed that a conceit of the show is that all straight men are really beasts at some level. And this is, and I'm quoting him here on Twitter. He said, "The symbolic reason Oz becomes a werewolf is that he's so decent so much of the time that he has to be a part-time monster to balance it out."
Oh my God.
I know. And I was like, that is exactly, like, I think he absolutely nailed it with.
Absolutely. Go
I know,
Rob.
because, I mean, leave it to the metaphors guy to spot the metaphor. But
exactly.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of feels great that Oz, it's like, I don't know. It's like the only way we can have that kind of non-toxic masculinity exist in the world of the show is
we have to pack it all into one intense period.
We have to have, and there has to be some darkness there. He can't just be like a decent guy across the board.
Right.
Even Giles, has this dark past and what is it?
Oh,
Cordelia
sure. And we're going to see Giles turn into a demon. We're going to see, lots of stuff. Giles has a dark side. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, come on, man.
I know, that's nuts. But yeah, that's so right. Like the one decent guy we get, we got to make him a
literal monster who like rips things to shreds. Like that.
Right.
Anyway. But then we also have a funny little with Oz looking for the Buffy rat. There's a I feel like there's almost a little pun on the wolf and the mouse. And of course, the title of the episode comes from a musical. Bewitched, Bothered, and Bewildered is a song in Pal Joey, I want to say, Rodgers and Hart. And the idea of the wolf and the mouse, which is really the male and the female in musicals, is a whole thing. So I don't know. I don't know if that is intentional cheekiness on the part of the show, but
well, maybe, but it's
kind of happy.
Cool. It's kind of cool. So speaking of music, you had some other notes about the music.
My
that
good
you
Lord.
Up on.
Here we go again with like, I don't know enough about music composition, appreciation theory. I don't know enough to say smart things, but I can say I absolutely love the music that we get in this episode. The rock music that's playing when Xander comes into school after the spell is cast and he's got all this swagger because he's like, oh yeah, we cast a spell on Cordelia. And then he's like leaning over the girls and Cordelia just is not having it. But his like his strut as he comes in. And then there's this wonderful, it's almost the Xander running around frantically violin music when he's panicked, and we use it a couple of times and it is so delightful every time because it ends at just the right moment and then we get some little, I don't know, doodle-doo, as like and here's the reveal for this scene. It's so great. And of course I mentioned already the saxophone theme when Buffy slinks into the library, all Jessica Rabbit. And then my favorite might be the Buffy rat oboe theme. So we go from this sultry saxophone to a little oboe, just she's running around. It's so great. It's so great.
Oh,
and of
my
course,
God.
once the mob forms, the horny / angry mob, which I was gonna say horngry. But horngry is horny and hungry, so we need a portmanteau for horny and angry. Anyway, once they're after Xander, we get a kind of suspense horror theme, which is appropriate.
Yeah.
But I just love all of the music. And then, of course, we get that wonderful slow-mo sequence of Xander walking down the hall at school. And, it's...
Got
with
the,
the
love,
funk.
got the love.
And he's just... and it goes on just a little bit too long.
Yeah.
Which I really appreciate, because for the first few moments, that's really funny. He's walking down the hallway and, in slow motion with funk playing in the background, and all the girls are like, yeah, Xander. And then it just keeps going. And it keeps going.
No,
and
fantastic.
It's way uncomfortable by the time it ends. And I think that's a great choice to draw that out.
Yeah, to make that deliberately uncomfortable for us. I think it's great. And just a shout out to the music guy on Buffy is Christoph Beck. And he's the one who wrote the Close Your Eyes theme for Angel and Buffy, which kills me every single time I hear it. And I break down into a weeping mess. So thank you so much, Christoph Beck. But I just want to throw that out that he's like the musical supervisor or whatever for the show. And he does some really, really great work. And having themes for different things is just so incredibly valuable. Like the power of music and visual storytelling, the power of sound effects, everything in general, is so like underappreciated, because so often we cannot notice it. But the power of that is so strong. And what they're able to do with musical choices and certain, musical theming and everything is really incredibly powerful. And I think that he's an incredible talent.
Awesome.
All right. Okay. So since nobody's wearing anything this week, everybody's pretty much dropping all their clothes. Did you have anything for what are you wearing aside from just a raincoat or just Xander's shirt?
What are you wearing? Nothing but a raincoat, baby. Not really. There was I think it's Harmony makes a comment about, when are you and Xander going to start wearing little matching outfits? And I really kind of hoped that their outfits would be not matching, but coordinated.
Right.
And they weren't, which, oh well. You mentioned the moment where Cordelia has her shirt buttoned all the way up to hide that she's wearing Xander's necklace underneath it, which is just so dear. Yeah. And I love that Willow puts on Xander's shirt. Gets into his bed. I don't know why that feels so very Willow to me, but it works.
When she's nibbling on his ear, though, it's like, okay, is that sexy or is that just weird?
Well, ostensibly, and I'm not an anthropologist, but ostensibly that is why we have earlobes. They are to be nibbled on by sexual partners. Yes. Yeah, that's why they're there.
Because she was sucking the whole thing in. She
goes for it. She really goes for it. But, everybody likes different stuff.
Yeah. Whatever.
Love what you love, baby.
Love what you love.
Good night.
All right.
Okay.
So what about the patriarchy for this week?
Okay.
Do we have any patriarchal moments?
I mean, we're deep in Xander's POV, so it's going to be a little bit, or a lot of it patriarchal in that way. And we talked a little bit about Giles trying to shield Buffy from the truth about who Angelus is, but not, nothing really glaring, except for this line.
Yeah.
That Xander has to Cordelia, and he says, "None of this would have happened if you hadn't broken up with me."
Right.
And in that moment, it's very funny, and they're fighting, and then it's revealed that the spell was for her, and of course she's touched and all of that. But that idea that a woman would bring any of this on herself just by telling a man no.
Yes. No, absolutely.
That is something that happens every day. And women are, I mean, horrible things are done to women who say no to men. And that line really rattled me, that this was...
That's a tough line. Yeah.
That this was her fault for rejecting him. Now, the reason that she rejects him is shitty, because her friends are shallow, and she's, I mean...
But she doesn't need to have a good reason.
Yeah.
If she says, I don't want this relationship, she has a right to say, I don't want this relationship.
Yeah. I'm... Absolutely. And I'm thinking within the context of like the story and making this line be okay. But it's really, really troubling. I mean, it's something that doesn't get talked about enough when we talk about gun violence, and how often the women who are victims are women who said no. So...
No, it's really bad, and that is such a common idea. None of this would have happened if you hadn't broken up with me. You made me hit you. You know, you did this thing, and that's why I did this thing. You know, without ever having the responsibility land on the man who did this terrible thing. You know, it's always the woman's fault. So that's really disturbing. I have a girl power moment of the week. Which is also a bad moment of the week. So it's like both of these things all in one.
Complexity.
I do like the moment that Cordelia stands up to her friends.
Yeah.
You know, where she says, you're a sheep and I'm not, and I'm cool, and I'm way cooler than all of you guys. I love all of that until she chooses Xander. Because here's the thing. Xander, like, I know that she liked him. I like that she stands up to her friends, that the only reason she broke up with him was because of, you know, her friends and all of that. And once she's able to step out from that, she doesn't need to be broken up with him anymore. And okay, fine. But I don't like the fact that Xander does all of this and ends up getting the girl.
Yeah.
That, like, you know, he has some consequence. Willow's not talking to him. You know, he almost got everybody killed. God knows how Joyce is going to pay for the repairs to her house. You know, that house is always getting destroyed. So, I mean, there's all this stuff that Xander did. And in the end, he still gets rewarded. And I feel like it's not okay. Like, you know, he didn't mean for this to happen, but he did mean to mess with Cordelia's consent.
Yeah.
That was actually his intention. And so for Cordelia to be like, no, that's okay, I think it's kind of cute.
Yeah.
You know, and then take him back. That is a really bad note to end on for me. But I love the speech that she gives to Harmony, where she's like, I'm way cooler than you. I don't need you. I'm not a sheep, you know. That's great. And then we turn around and it's just a bad moment. Xander needs to be held to account for the fact that he didn't intend for all of these women to go crazy and murderous, but he did intend to mess with Cordelia's free will.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
Yeah. It's really troubling because from a visual and narrative standpoint, I enjoy seeing them together. I enjoy that.
I do too.
That moment where they're walking away and she realizes what she's done, and, you know, her eyes go all wide. And, oh my God. And
I know. And she's grown in that. I love it.
It's so great. And I love the slow, you know, we talked about the slow burn of Willow and Oz, the slow burn of Cordelia becoming a member of the Scooby Gang. We haven't really addressed, and it is great. There is so much going on below the surface with Cordelia. But yeah, it's not good. It's not good. And of course she prefaces it with her little ableist slur, which, you know, is a thing that we all said in the 90s. And now we know not to say that, but it's still a huge bummer when I hear Cordelia say something that is like less than great. I want 2018 Cordelia is what I want.
I know.
Yeah, but it is a weird message that his revenge plan affects everybody but Cordelia, and Cordelia's like, oh, that's so sweet. Like, you were gonna I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's not okay. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, and it plays into this whole idea of, you know, if someone isn't obsessed with you or isn't possessive, someone isn't willing to cast a spell on you for revenge, that's not really a viable, like, that's cute, that obsession is, I don't know. It's not good.
It's tough.
It's not good. It is a very mixed bag.
Tough.
It is a complex show with complex relationships, and I have complex feelings.
I have complex feelings too. All right. So what are your complex feelings about your favorite part?
My complex feelings about my favorite part are not complex at all. I love the Buffy rat. I love the Buffy rat. I mean, it's probably because I had pet rats as a child, and they are delightful. If you do not have larger animals, pet rats are sweet and lovely and friendly, but oh my God. And I love that they just call her the Buffy rat.
The Buffy rat.
Like, she's both Buffy and a rat. And somehow it's just, I don't know.
She's like, and I had a real craving for cheese.
Yep. Then a sudden need for cheese. Like, me too. I identify.
Pretty much always have that.
Pretty much, yes. So, Lani, what's your favorite part?
Oh, God. Oz hitting Xander in the face. Oz hitting Xander in the face, and then I just had this need to hit you in the face, and then reaching down and helping him up. I love Oz. Oz is my favorite thing.
And this has been your moment of Oz.
Your moment of Oz.
So good. It's so good. All right, that's it for today. To join in the discussion on Twitter, follow Lani at LaniDianeRich and me at Noelle Aloud, and use the hashtag StillPretty. You can also visit the Chipperish forums. Go to chipperish.com, click on forum, and join in the fun.
Or you can keep Chipperish Media going to the tune of $1 a month or more and gain access to the live chat in Discord, where you can hang out with me and Noelle and all the Chipperish patrons whose Valentines are usually met with heartfelt restraining orders. You'll also get access to exclusive patron content like our new podcast, Still Chipper, where the Chipperish hosts go off topic to talk about things and ideas that we find delightful. Visit patreon.com/Chipperish to find out more.
You can also show your support by giving Still Pretty a great review on Apple Podcasts, or by telling your friends about the show, or by telling Xander that no, lap dancing does not figure into this scenario. Jesus, Xander!
We will be back next time with Passion, the 17th episode of Season 2, and oh my God, it is such a good episode. Until then, we intend revenge, pure as the driven snow.